Joining me now to go over the day's top stories is former President of the Victorian Liberal Party, Michael Kroger.
Rita, how are you?
I am well, Let's start with Home Affairs Minister Claire O'Neil. She's had a shocking week. She's had to perform several backflips. She was forced to admit she had no idea how many newly released sex offenders were actually wearing ankle monitors after they were released from immigration detention. And today we've learned more about the arrival of the first asylum seeker boat in 9 years to reach mainland Australia. Well, Opposition Leader Peter Dutton had some thoughts about that.
People smugglers have heard that we've got a weak Prime Minister. They've heard that he's watered down many of the policies that the Coalition had in government, and they've heard that he's disbanded Operation Sovereign Borders. They've watered down many of the policies that we had in place which stopped the boats, and now, once again, the boats have started under a Labor government.
Claire O'Neil has a crucial portfolio, the Home Affairs portfolio. Is she up to the job?
Unfortunately, she's not, nor is Minister Giles in immigration. Look, these are not issues for Labor. Labor are all at sea on this type of thing, excuse the pun. These people have no idea about how to deal with this. These are hard issues. They failed terribly during the Rudd years. That was a total disaster. And we're seeing it out on a micro scale playing again today. So, I don't know, sooner or later they'll get a group of ministers to go around to Dutton's office again and ask him how to fix this problem, I would think, Rita.
Well, they accepted all 6 of the Coalition's amendments after Claire O'Neil said, no, this is the legislation.
Correct.
She is supposed to be one of the better ones, but you keep hearing from insiders that she's capable, she's one of the future...
Who are you talking to?
Well, obviously all the wrong people. But who do you see within Labor who actually believes in border protection and could do that role?
Well, usually the centre-right ministers are more, reliable on this type of thing. Albany, but it's a hard left government. It's a socialist left government. The best minister so far has been Don Farrell, the Trade Minister. He's the standout minister so far. But there have been some very poor performers. That's before you get to Tony Burke and Chris Bowen.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about Chris Bowen later in the program. Now, to an incredible story. Steve Price touched on it just shortly, briefly, I should say. I can't believe this is happening in the Australian media. This shows you how broken things are. The Australian reports that the Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance, that's the Journalists' Union, as well as key figures from outlets such as the ABC, Guardian, Nine Media, they've endorsed an open letter calling on Australian journalists to commit to applying the same professional scepticism to information from the Israeli government as it applies to information from Hamas, a terrorist group, Michael. I mean, this is astonishing, even for the leftist media, to have this call to treat information from the Israeli government the same way you would treat it from Hamas, who rape, torture, slaughter children, women, burn entire families alive. I mean, how can you possibly make that call?
Well, you can only make that call if you are a hard left journalist who shouldn't have any place in, media organisations that purport to be, independent. I mean, this is like saying a generation ago, we treat the British and American and the Allies commentary on World War II the same way that we treat information coming out of the Gestapo and Nazi Germany. We treat the American views on Al-Qaeda, the American views on ISIS, the same as we treat any press release from the ISIS Health Ministry or the, Al-Qaeda Health Ministry. This is really a sickness in the left in the Australian media that is extremely concerning, and good on the Nine editorial leadership for banning these reporters who signed this document, because it shows they are completely on the wrong side of history.
Well, yeah, that is an interesting development. Nine has said that anyone who signs this letter will not be reporting on the conflict. I think that might cause a few issues in the newsroom. We'll see. But staying on the media, remember the sketch comedy show Little Britain? They used to have ongoing sketch about the only gay in the village. Yep, that was him. Well, you could write a sketch about the only conservative at the ABC, except Tom Switzer is quitting his national radio hosting role. He'll finish up at the end of the year. The man dubbed the lone conservative says he wants to step down to concentrate on his role as Executive Director of the Centre for Independent Studies. Michael, how can we have a mammoth media organisation, taxpayer funded to the tune of more than $1 billion a year, and yet it doesn't have conservatives leading its programs, any TV, radio programs. It has a charter. It's required to have balance.
Well, the ABC's been in breach of the law for years by not having balance. And as I said before, this has happened under the watch of Ita Buttrose, who's been hopeless. I mean, they've treated Ita Buttrose and her board with contempt. And the board should be doing something about this. They should be, when I was on the board, the management used to say these are management issues, not matters for the board. Well, the board have a statutory responsibility. They're in breach of that responsibility to ensure impartiality and a lack of bias in relation to the way news is gathered and reported. And for as long as she's there, which is not much longer, Ita should do something about this, because losing Thomas Switzer, who's a star reporter, star at what he does, is a big loss for the ABC. But they need a lot more people, not just Tom, to be at the ABC to give it any type of semblance of balance. It's completely off the rails.
They are so fat. You compare them to any other media organisation that has had to, change dramatically to survive. Well, they don't have to worry about that because the taxpayer just keeps giving them $1 billion plus every year. Now, let's go to the UK. Suella Braverman, the UK's former Home Secretary, she was dumped by the Tories. Well, she posted this today. She said, today's record migration stats show we've let in an extra 1 million people in just 2 years, a population equivalent to Birmingham. The pressure on housing, the NHS, schools, wages and community cohesion is unsustainable. When do we say enough is enough? I mean, this is worth talking about, not just because what's happening in the UK and they've got all sorts of uncontrolled illegal immigration, but the numbers Australia is bringing in when we've got a housing crisis, where we've got the same issues with our health system and other services. When are we going to actually have the big debate about population in this country?
Well, I think in due course, Peter Dutton will have to come out and say immigration has to return to pre-COVID levels. A couple 100,000. The years of having 450, 500,000 people in Britain, 1 million in 2 years, these are unsustainable. We don't have the infrastructure. I mean, we just don't have the hospitals and the schools and the community services to deal with these types of immigration levels. And of course, it's putting massive pressure on the housing system. Builders going bust. We're not building enough houses, and of course you can't ever build enough houses when you have immigration levels at these record highs. So sooner or later, the Dutton opposition will have to come out and say enough is enough in Australia.
Well, I've proposed that every general election we get a vote. We have a plebiscite on the big issues, consequential issues, and I think population is one of them. And it's something where both sides of the political spectrum seem to ignore the Australian public and what they want, because the polling on this is quite clear. Michael Kroger, thank you so much for your time.